Welcome to a play-by-play review. I'm your host, Henry, and we are halfway through the regular season of 2025 for the NFL, which is insanity for me to think about still. I still feel like the season's basically just begun, yet we're already through week 9. And with being through week 9, we're definitely getting more of a picture of sort of who's in, who's out, who's good, who's not. There's still some teams where I'm like, are you good? I don't know. But for the most part, it's like, yeah, we can tell who the contenders and the pretenders are, to use that that turn of phrase that the ESPN likes to use all the time. And so with that, I'll get to some of the general notes so far. So for bye weeks, because this is yet another week with bye weeks, I want to say the last ones are week 13. I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure it's week 13. For this week, though, is the New York Jets, Philadelphia Eagles, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Cleveland Browns all had their byes this past week. And this is a week where last week was the one where it kind of the season tilted back towards the predictable and normal in a way, where it's the narratives going into the season like the past couple of years were upheld with a lot of teams, where the teams you expect to win won, and the events everyone kind of could predict would happened with little to no deviation, which compared to the rest of the season has been not the case whatsoever. And for this week, we had our 1 week of normalcy, and we're back to our regularly scheduled chaos, because this was just another one where, I mean, some games were predictable, other games were like, just I don't even know anymore. One last thing to note was that this week was trade deadline week, so I'm recording this on the 4th of November, the Tuesday after week 9, and it's should be going up the same day. I doubt too many people will be listening on November 4th, but today was the trade deadline. It was at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So any more trades cannot happen until the start of, I think it's the start of next, or after the season. I don't know. No more trades during the season, essentially. And so it's always kind of big deal. It's more, the baseball usually has the biggest trade deadline day, because it's a lot more of prospect shifting and players going on rental deals and teams trying to rent. Basically just how the free agency and player acquisition in baseball is set up lends itself to a lot more trading and wheeling and dealing in that compared to the NFL. Although the past couple of years, the trade deadlines have sort of heated up a little bit more, so I'd say. And this one it wasn't super it was interesting, but it wasn't super active, I'd say. But I'll get to those at the end of the day, or not end of the episode. I'll talk about the trade deadline after I get through the game recaps. So to jump straight into game recaps, we'll go to the Thursday night football game, which I said earlier that this was a week of chaos. Thursday was not so much chaotic. This was the 2-5 Ravens going into the Miami to take on the Dolphins, who were 2-6. And this is one where Lamar Jackson was finally back from injury. And Roquan Smith was also back from injury. Basically, the Ravens got a lot of guys who had been injured back, and as pretty much expected, the Ravens took care of business pretty handily. The first half was a little, score-wise, it wasn't that shaky. The Ravens were up 14-6 at halftime, but yardage-wise, they were actually down in the yardage category, where the Dolphins had 206 yards of offense compared to the Ravens 114 or something like that. However, the main caveat to that was that the Dolphins could not get into the end zone whatsoever. They literally didn't. They didn't score a single time at all in the second half. They finished with 6 points, losing 28-6. I might have said that already. But yeah, the Dolphins, they had, I believe, a turnover on downs in the red zone. They also fumbled in the red zone early in the first half. They fumbled in their own red zone, which gave Ravens prime field position. Slip of the tongue there, but essentially the Dolphins were not playing clean football and were turning it over at the worst possible time, whether it be through interceptions, fumbles, or turning it over on downs. But the Dolphins just could not get out of their own way. They did have a really bad call go against them, whereas Ollie Gordon, their rookie running back, was coming across the backfield to go make a block. He kind of tripped and then basically took out the defender while he was going down. It got called for tripping by the referee, which it was not because it was clearly not deliberate whatsoever. But it got called anyway, and it negated a huge pass to Jalen Waddle that would have set the Dolphins up for a first and goal. So that was really unfortunate for the Dolphins, but I don't think if that call didn't happen, I don't think the Dolphins were winning this game regardless. Tua did not have a very good game. The Ravens defense actually finally had a really good game. Again, this is the Dolphins, so it's not the biggest, test of strength in the world, but it's for how poorly the Ravens defense had been playing so far this season. It was very nice to see for them that their defense could finally get it together now that they had a good chunk of their, starters back. I believe Malachi Starks got his first career interception this game, and really is just the whole game was just Ravens the whole time. Lamar had a good game. Like didn't have in terms of pure numbers. He only had like 220 passing yards, but I think he had 4 touchdown passes. And he was just being really efficient with the ball. Mark Andrews, Charlie Kolar, the Ravens tight ends, had good games. And like once the second half hit, the Dolphins just kind of laid down to die and just never did anything to really change it. It was just very, very lopsided. And after this game, the Dolphins general manager, Chris Greer, who had been with the team or been the team's general manager since 2016, I believe, he and the Dolphins mutually parted ways, which should have probably happened a good few seasons ago with how I'd say how poorly his GM tenure has been. And I know Dolphins fans, from what I've seen online, have been very happy that Chris Greer is gone. Mike McDaniel, however, at least right now, and it's looking to be for the rest of the season, will not be let go, at least during the season. Who knows after the season concludes, but right now, McDaniel, not Mike McDonald, we'll get to him later with the Seahawks, but Mike McDaniel is still the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. So next up, we'll go straight to the 1 o'clock games, and we'll start with the Falcons at the New England Patriots. So the Falcons were coming off that really shocking loss to the Dolphins last week, like complete blowout loss to one of the worst teams record-wise and honestly performance-wise in the league last week, going up against the Patriots, who were having the season from heaven, essentially. They're an absolutely incredible season for the New England Patriots. And this is one where, so the Patriots win 24-23 in a game that was not the best they played in the slightest. The Patriots looked okay, I'd say. They didn't look great, but they were good enough, I'd say. Their defense was having a hard time really against Drake London. Drake London had 9 catches, 118 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So if you had him in fantasy, you were probably having a good day, a really good day, actually. Drake stat-wise, he was fine. Like, he goes 19 for 29, 250 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But it was definitely one where we've seen better games from this Patriots team. They didn't have Ramondre Stevenson, so Travion Henderson got the starting role. They actually used him, which felt like the first time ever that they've actually used Travion Henderson. He only went for 55 yards, and his backup running back, who I forget his first name, but Jennings was the last name, scored a touchdown and was getting a lot more usage, I felt like, in the second half of the game. So I don't know what their plan is for Travion Henderson. It's kind of weird, but in the end, the Patriots win. A big part of this was that the Falcons, Parker Romo, their kicker, who they chose over Younghoe Koo back early in the season, he missed the game-tying extra point in the fourth quarter, and that really put the pressure on the Falcons, where they had a chance to march down the field in a 2-minute drill and try and kick the game-winning field goal, but they basically had mishap after mishap. They had a botched snap that led to a intentional grounding play by Michael Penix Jr., who was okay in this game. And it just kind of really killed their momentum and really just messed them up this whole game. So it was one where it's just kind of the Falcons where they have their opportunities to really, seize a win and pull ahead, but just through mishaps and things both in largely in their control, they just don't succeed basically. And it's why they're 3-5. It's clear they have a good amount of talent on their roster, both offensively and defensively. Their defense, the Falcons defense, played a pretty solid game. Their pass rush especially was having a good day. But it's just something will go wrong for them, and for whatever reason, they're just not able to pull out consistent wins. And I don't know how much of that is a player issue. I don't know how much of that is a coaching issue. I've never been a huge fan of Raheem Morris as the head coach of the Falcons. So I'm more inclined to say it's on him, but I don't know too much for sure. I know from what I can see online, there aren't too many Falcons fans that are really all that high on Raheem Morris. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm really interested to see like how the Falcons, how they play this back half of the season, and like if it goes poorly, if they do decide to go with a coaching change, or really just kind of how the Falcons play this rest of the season. So next up is the Los Angeles Chargers taking on the Tennessee Titans, going into Tennessee. And so the Chargers win 27-20. This is a very Pyrrhic victory for them because Joe Alt, who is their superstar offensive tackle, I think he's playing left tackle this season, but with also Rashawn Slater out for the season. He can be right or left tackle depending on how they situate him. Right now he's the left tackle, but he went down with a season-ending ankle injury. He had dealt with an injury earlier this season, and now he is out for good for this season. So Chargers, both their superstar offensive tackles are now out for the season. And it really shows. The Titans got 6 sacks in this game. And, the Chargers are 6-3, and they're playing good football with the amount of injuries they have on the offensive line and in the backfield. But I just don't know how sustainable this team can be with the injuries they have. This is not to say, I like the Chargers. I like what they're doing. I've always liked Justin Herbert and how he plays. It's just that they just have too many key injuries at the moment where they're it's this offensive line is dealing. Their best offensive linemen are out for the season, and it's clearly showing. So they unfortunately cannot play the Titans every week, who are now 1-8. So the fact that they're only beating the Titans by 1 score is an indictment of just how much they're missing Alt and Slater. So that's my only thing going forward for the Chargers is that, take the wins where you can get them, but I wouldn't be too surprised if they start dropping games just because of these injuries that they're dealing with. As for the Titans, I legitimately don't really know what to say about them. What new things I can say about them, basically. Their defense certainly has plenty of talent, or in the sense of their defense tends to usually play well enough to, give their offense a chance, but their offense just has basically nothing of worth outside of Cam Ward that they just cannot win games. Their only win was against the Cardinals when the Cardinals just completely collapsed, and they had that Amari DiMercato touchback that should have been a touchdown because he pulled it to Sean Jackson, and yeah, it's this Titans team needs a full facelift on the offensive side of the ball, and I don't know if they can do that in one off season. Maybe they can, because presumably they're going to have a top 3 pick with how they're going. So, but I don't know. They just need so many things. They need a ton of playmakers. They need a better offensive line. They need a better offensive coach. And yeah, it's just rough to see. It's always rough to see young quarterbacks, highly drafted quarterbacks, just get thrust into really poor situations. And I don't know. You just got to hope Cam Ward can develop more in his second season when he hopefully has a better system around him. So after that, actually, do I want to go with the Bengals Bears now? I guess I will. I'm not. This is actually a. I'm debating on it because this game was kind of insane, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to save it for later, like to I don't know, to build up more hype for it. But I'll go with it now because it was something to say the least. So the Chicago Bears and the Cincinnati Bengals actually were both coming off of really frustrating losses last week. The Bears losing to the Tyler Huntley led Ravens and the Bengals losing to the 0-win Jets. So both teams looking to bounce back. Bengals were still definitely looking to try and be in the hunt and try and salvage something before Joe Burrow comes back. Whereas the Bears were trying to bounce back and build some more momentum in a very, very competitive NFC, both North and also just NFC as a whole. And so this is one where, in the end, the Bears would win 47-42 in a game where the defenses just decided to take a break. The Bears were missing DeAndre Swift coming into this game. He was dealing with an injury. And so Kyle Monangai, their 7th-round rookie running back, went 26 carries for 176 yards. Caleb Williams also had a pretty solid game overall. Colston Loveland caught the game-winning touchdown pass with, it was, I believe, 40-something seconds left to go. Bears had no timeouts and were on their own, 30-yard line. And they were clearly looking to try and get into field goal range rather than score a touchdown. And Caleb Williams hit Colston Loveland over the middle. And he just kind of ran forward through a bunch of defenders and into the end zone. It was peak Bengals defense for how god awful they were. It wasn't a walk off because there's still 20, 30 seconds left, but it was one where it basically sealed the game because the Bengals weren't able to get enough field position for a Hail Mary. They did attempt one, but Flacco threw it 30 yards short because I think he got hit as he threw. But as for the rest of the game, the Bengals didn't have Trey Hendrickson, and it was clear that their defense without Trey Hendrickson is probably the worst in the league. With Trey Hendrickson in there, they're probably 5th worst maybe, but still really bad. And this is one where really any offense could have put up these numbers, but the Bears, this is probably the best the Bears offense looked since the Cowboys game, which shouldn't be too surprising because the Cowboys also have one of the worst defenses in the league. And it was one where the lead was getting traded back and forth. Both teams were just airing it out completely. Joe Flacco went 31 of 47 for 470 yards and 4 touchdowns. He literally set his career high in passing yards. It was one of the best games of his career, which is kind of crazy. And they still lost. So it's just real rough for the Bengals. T. Higgins had a really nice game. He had an insanely good catch towards the end of the game. The Bengals also converted an onside kick in the 4th quarter where they were down by multiple scores. They got an onside kick and actually came back and took the lead and then lost it in the end. And it's one you just got to go watch because it's one of those where if you love offensive shootouts, this is the game for you. It's those games where it's the Chiefs and the Rams back in 2018 on Monday night where they both scored over 50 points, or that Saints Giants game back in 2014 or whatever it was, where Breeze and Eli Manning combined for 9 touchdown passes and 800 yards of passing or something like that. It's just one of the ones where if you're a fan of offensive football, you're just in heaven because you're just watching offenses have their absolute way with things. I think Caleb Williams also caught a touchdown pass in this game. And he's the first person ever to in a season throw, run, and catch for multiple touchdown passes in one season because he's caught 2 touchdown passes and he's ran and thrown for a lot more, obviously, as a quarterback. But yeah, it's crazy. So after a brutal loss last week, the Bears bounced back. They're now 5-3. The Bengals are 3-6, and they're pretty much looking to be done for the season because I don't know if how they could bounce back unless they basically just win out. And even then, it's I just don't know if it's going to be enough for them. And with how generationally bad this defense is, I'm not sure how many more games they're even going to win because they can't stop anything at the moment. So After that, we'll move from one AFC North victory to another. The 7-1, I believe they're 7-1 coming in. Yeah, 7-1 coming into this game. Indianapolis Colts going into Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. And the Steelers would win 27-20 in a game that, I think coming into the season, people probably predicted the Steelers were going to win. Coming into that Sunday, though, I think people were predicting an Indianapolis win with how crazy the season's been for Indy. But it's also one where Indianapolis seems to always struggle whenever they go into Pittsburgh. I think they have like a 2-15 record or something when they play in Pittsburgh or something like that. It's crazy. Like the Colts just never are able to really succeed in Pittsburgh for some unknown reason. And this year was no exception. It was a really odd game plan from a passive observer like me for the Colts. They just didn't seem to want to use Jonathan Taylor like at all. Like he only ran the ball. I think he only had 14 carries for 45 yards, and I think part of that was the Steelers seemed to hone in on Jonathan Taylor early, from what I could tell, and like really just forced the Colts offense to throw the ball a lot more than run the ball. But my thing is that like the Colts, their offense runs through Jonathan Taylor. Like it's clear that when he gets stuffed and when they don't use him, the team struggles. And, when the guy is like, when he is a legit MVP candidate with how he's been playing so far this season, to not like really make him the focal point of your offense and have Daniel Jones throw the ball 55 times in this game, or 50 times, I should say, not 55, but still 50 times in this game is not the recipe for success, even against a Steelers defense that has been struggling up until this point. Like it was struggling so bad that Steelers fans literally brought a coffin to the tailgate and had an open casket funeral for their defense. Like they put a sign with the Steelers, like saying the Steelers defense inside the coffin, or and had a quote unquote funeral in the parking lot for the tailgate. And that for some reason, it did bolstered the Steelers defense to have an insane game. They turned the Indianapolis Colts over 6 times, which is not a recipe for success if you're the Colts. They were somehow still only lost by 1 score, which is kind of probably even the more impressive thing. But when your offense turns the ball over 6 times, that is not good at all. TJ Watt had a really good game. He finally, had his really good game where he'd been pretty quiet all season long. And like he had a really nice strip sack, and it was once Jonathan Taylor got taken out of the game, essentially, and not by injury, but just by game plan. And the Colts were resorting to the passing attack. The Steelers' pass rush was really starting to get home, and Daniel Jones had his worst game as a Colt by a large margin. Like this was peak Giants Daniel Jones right here. This was not Indiana Jones. This was Danny Derps Jones. And he was derping the ball in this game. He threw multiple interceptions, and it was not good overall. So the Colts fall to 7-2. They're still 7-2, so it's not like their season's over by any means. We're going to get to the trade deadline for them here in a little bit, since they are clearly not in the losing mindset whatsoever right now. But this is one where get Jonathan Taylor going, and you're going to have a good time. If they don't, if you're an NFL defense going up against the Colts, it's kind of like the Eagles last year, where if you stop Saquon Barkley, you're probably going to have a good time. Unless you're the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, then you just kind of forget to guard Jalen Hurts in the Super Bowl. But it's one where it's clear that Jonathan Taylor is the focal point of the Colts offense, and if he gets stopped, they might run into some problems. So after that, we're going to go to the 49ers going into New York to take on the Giants. And this is one where Mac Jones once again took the start for the 49ers. I'm assuming they're just having it so Brock Purdy is like making complete sure that he is not injured in the slightest, because this is like Mac Jones' 7th start, I think, at quarterback. And I mean, hey, 49ers won. They won 34-24. They're 6-3. McCaffrey had a pretty solid game overall, all things considered. He had 106 rushing yards and a touchdown. Also had 67 reception yards and a touchdown, which he led the team in both. Mac Jones had a pretty solid game overall. And it was one where it's the game where you kind of expect the 49ers, like how to play, where they just offensively just seem to be outpacing their opponent, and their defense does good enough to, play complementary football there. It was just one where the Niners just seemed to outplay the Giants. The Giants just, with the injuries they have on the offensive side of the ball, their offense just cannot get enough going. Jackson Dart looks fun enough, but without Malik Neighbors and without Cam Scatterbo, it's just clear that he doesn't have enough help right now on the offensive side of the ball to really compete with teams like 49ers. And it was one where the Giants just not really at any point in this game really were a major threat to the 49ers. And, as many injuries as they've dealt with for the 49ers, they're still 6-3, piled on another win. So just take the wins where you can get them. What unfortunately does suck for the 49ers, though, is that Michael Williams, their first round pick, who I think picked like 11 or something like that, like a pretty high draft pick, their defensive lineman that they drafted in the first round this past year, tore his ACL, which really sucks for him. So he's out for the season, and just add another guy to the list for the 49ers and their injury woes. So next up, we'll go to an NFC North matchup. The Minnesota Vikings taking on the Detroit Lions. And in this game, J.J. McCarthy finally returned after his injury, and he did not waste any time. This was a really, really good game from what I could tell from J.J. McCarthy. Like, I think numbers-wise, it wasn't like incredible, but he looked really, really solid when he was on offense, and he was moving the ball very well against a Detroit defense that overall have been playing pretty solid this season, especially over the past couple of days, or weeks, not days. And McCarthy looked pretty comfortable in this game, even with like Justin Jefferson, who got injured. I mean, he was injured, but not like super serious. He came back in the game, but like even with Jefferson going down for a little bit, and the run game for the Vikings, could have been better, could have been worse. But I mean, McCarthy tossed 2 touchdowns, and he had a pretty solid overall game. The Vikings defense also had a really nice game. They just completely stuffed the Detroit run game. Like both David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs had like a combined like 50 something rushing yards. Like they just could not get anything going. And when this Vikings defense, or when a Brian Flores led defense, I should say, is able to stuff the run early and force a team to go on the passing attack, that's when they really that's when they really thrive, because Brian Flores loves his just diabolical blitz schemes. And this is one where the Lions were able to take out Detroit's run game early. I think because Minnesota put up 2 touchdowns in the first quarter, so they were already up by a decent amount early, and Detroit kind of shifted away from the run game. And it didn't help them, though, because overall this Vikings defense just was really picking apart the Detroit offense, especially in the pass rush category. And so for the Lions, they're 5-3, but this is definitely a little concerning where, they had a lot of optimism over the past couple of weeks where they were playing pretty solid, but they just lost to their division rival, who's got their young quarterback back in action. So they need to figure out how to get their run game going more efficiently, because this was a rough game for them where they kind of got embarrassed at home. So all things considered, it was a loss only by 3, but this team clearly has Super Bowl aspirations, the Lions, and losing to a Vikings team that was sub 500 is not good for those aspirations, essentially. So I don't think this isn't end of the world or anything like that for the Lions, but it's a little concerning, to say the least. So moving on to the final NFC North team that played this week, and the last of the 1 o'clock window, the Green Bay Packers are actually playing host to Carolina, taking on the Panthers, who were 4-4. Packers were 4-2-1. They're really odd record. And This is such a weird game. This is one of the ones that like really cemented this week as being a what in the world is this kind of week? Because so the Panthers would win 16-13 in a game where they won by their rushing offense and their defense, which going into the season, I don't think anyone was expecting the Panthers rushing attack and defense to be winning them games, like solely winning them games basically, because Bryce Young, I mean, he didn't turn the ball over and he was more of a game manager in this game, but well, that's not true at all. I misspoke. Bryce Young did turn the ball over. He threw an interception in the end zone, now that I think about it. But it was one where Bryce Young was definitely not throwing highlights, to say the least. But Rico Dowdle had another incredibly good game, 130 yards and two touchdowns on 25 carries. And again, the Panthers defense, they hold the Packers to 13 points. The caveat, I'll say this, Tucker Kraft, their Packers superstar tight end, tore his ACL in this game, unfortunately, about halfway through, which really sucks for the Packers offense because he was having an incredibly good year. But in either way, like they have so many wide receivers on this team, the Packers do, and they just cannot seem to be able to reliably generate offense through those receivers. Romeo Doubs had a good game. He had 91 yards on 7 receptions, but it's still one where it feels like this Packers team's like unable to get out of like second gear and sometimes even first gear for their offense. Jordan Love had a pretty bad game overall. He threw a really bad arm punt interception, basically in a triple coverage. He should have had 2 interceptions where the Packers were in the red zone. It was a 4th and 8, and for some reason they decided to go for it. I don't know why. So Brandon McManus, the Green Bay Packers kicker, did miss a kick earlier in this game, but it was like it probably would have been like a 38, 40-yard field goal basically. And in a game where they eventually lose by 3, it's kind of a rough look because the Packers would go for it on a 4th and 8, and Jordan Love would basically buy time in the pocket, kind of scramble around and get pressured and basically throw up a lob pass over to the end zone. And it was really kind of pathetic in a way because the camera pans over from Love, who's like basically getting hit as he throws and throwing it up into the end zone. And literally the only person on screen is a Panthers cornerback. I believe Michael Jackson was the cornerback. It was literally him standing in the end zone. There was no Packers receiver within like 20 yards of him. But Jackson literally stood there and completely whiffed on the interception attempt. It was just the people like to stereotype defensive backs for having poor catching abilities, them's DB hands, so to say. But this was peak DB hands type of moment because it was like you could not have had an easier interception and he just let it drop. It didn't really matter too much because it was a turnover on downs anyway, but it's one where like, you want the interception for just, if you're a player, you want the interception and it's no harm, no foul, but like, come on, man. that was kind of sad. But yeah, it was, I still have no idea that the Panthers won this game. It genuinely astounds me that the Panthers won this game. I don't think the Panthers are a bad team. They're 5-4, which is kind of incredible. But like the Packers were supposed to be really good. Micah Parsons had 0 quarterback pressures in this game somehow, which was a first in his career, first time that's ever happened. I know that the Panthers didn't pass the ball a ton, but still it's kind of crazy. And this Packers team is like, on paper, they should be really, really good. And like, even in some games, they're really, really good. But then there's others where they're just not good at all. Like, what? I don't understand the Green Bay Packers at all. I have no idea if they're good or not. I think they are. I'm pretty sure they are. But I don't know for sure. Like, with performances like this, I don't know. It's hard to say. So we'll move on to the late afternoon games from this past Sunday. and to one that was, I guess, a little bit more predictable. The Jaguars going into Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. The Jaguars would win 30-29 in overtime. The Jaguars shouldn't have needed overtime to beat the Raiders, but they won in the end, which was the only thing that matters. So before this, a couple days before this, Travis Hunter got put on injured reserve for an injury suffered in practice that week. So he'll be out for an indeterminate amount of time, at least 4 weeks, as with any player going on injured reserve. I don't remember what the injury was, but I don't think they said it was season ending, but it's one where he's going to be out for a little while. And it was one where to start, it was a really, really ugly game. The Raiders offense could get nothing done. The Jags offense wasn't much better. Trevor Lawrence threw a really, really bad interception in the red zone where he basically forced it into like triple coverage on the goal line. And it was intercepted. And yeah, it was just really bad. It's one where like I have a little bit of optimism about the Jaguars this season, but performances like this are just it's one where I'm thinking they're going to be, if they make it into the playoffs, they're probably just going to be a one and done because they're still a few steps away from like really being in contention because they clearly have some parts there, but it's a work in progress still. Geno Smith, he had probably his best game as a Raider overall, 284 yards and 4 touchdowns. Ashton Genty couldn't really get going though. Neither run offense could get going all that much. For the Raiders though, Brock Bowers is insane. It's clear that they've missed him this season because he was back to full strength this week and he goes a casual 12 catches, 127 yards and 3 touchdowns. The Jags had no answers for Brock Bowers in this game. Like he was just feasting this whole time. He had an insanely good touchdown catch where he's like rolling away at the pylon and like one hand catches it over a defense. It was crazy. And yeah, it's one where Brock Bowers is legit, and when he's on the field, the Raiders offense is just immediately better. There was also some history in this game. Cam Little, the Jacksonville Jaguars kicker, who made a 70-yarder in the preseason, set NFL history by making a 68-yard field goal at the end of halftime. So it edges out Justin Tucker's 66-yard field goal from 2021. So Justin Tucker is finally going to be erased from the history books there. So good riddance to him, since everything that he did this past, or everything that came to light this past offseason with Justin Tucker, with his whole being like Deshaun Watson levels of like groping people at massage parlors and all that. Groping women, I should say, at massage parlors and nasty stuff, essentially. Like I know it's that like he's only been accused and not convicted or anything like that, but it's like it gets to a point where like you can only infer so much, and it's like, yeah, it's he probably did some, if not everything, that was accused of him. But so the one like major record that Justin Tucker held is now no longer his. Cam Little currently now holds the record for longest field goal in the NFL. Don't know how long that's going to last with how insane kicking has gotten this season. So, I mean, Brandon Aubrey had a chance to make or tie the record on Monday. He missed it, but I suspect we'll see a 69 or 70 or even a 71 yarder at some point in the near future with how good kicking has gotten and with the whole like K-ball substitution thing that going on as well. One other, anyway, that almost kind of delved into a side tangent there. Apologies for that. But one other little odd note in this game was, or not odd note, just kind of funny tidbit, I should say. One other tidbit in this game was that Trayvon Walker, the former number 1 overall pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars, got ejected in this game for literally punching a guy in the helmet, which you are obviously not supposed to do. I think that really hindered the Jags defense because they struggled a lot, especially in the fourth quarter. So, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I think losing him certainly didn't help. But in the end, though, the Jags would win in overtime. The Raiders tied it up in overtime because there's no longer a golden goal, so to speak, in overtime. And the Jags scored a touchdown in overtime, kicked an extra point. Raiders scored a touchdown as well, went for two, and did not get it. And that was why they lost 30-29. So next up, a game that this one, compared to a lot of the others, was actually pretty easy to predict. It was the New Orleans Saints going into Los Angeles to take on the Rams. This was Tyler Shuck's first career start. And this is one where the Rams won very handily, 34-10. The Saints defense was not playing well. Tyler Shuck was Well, it wasn't really that good, but wasn't horrible. Didn't completely embarrass himself, but certainly wasn't amazing. He did toss his first career touchdown pass to tight end Juwan Johnson, which, fun fact, Juwan Johnson is in his 6th year in the NFL. So he was drafted in 2019, I believe, out of Oregon. He might have been drafted in 2020. Drafted in 2020 because you include 2020, it makes it 6 seasons. I think. I don't know. Actually, give me 1 sec. I'm going to pause the recording and look it up. Okay, so I looked it up, and so this is his 6th season, but he was not drafted. He was an undrafted free agent, signed in 2020. But the reason I wanted to, tell the story a little bit was that Juwan Johnson played at Oregon in 2019. The backup quarterback at Oregon, so the starting quarterback, you might know, is Justin Herbert, who was also drafted in 2020 at pick number 6. Justin Herbert's backup at that time in 2019, who was a teammate of Juwan Johnson, was Tyler Shuck, who you might remember was drafted in the 2nd round this year. It goes to show how long Tyler Shuck was in college for, and just how messy things got with COVID and transfer portals and all that, and how, in red shirts as well, and how people could, be in the NFL for in college for 6-7 years. What was it like? I think Stetson Bennett was in the college football for 7 years as well, or something like that. Anyway, it's just little fun fact there was that Tyler Shuck and Juwan Johnson were teammates at Oregon, despite one being undrafted, signed in 2020, and the other being a rookie in 2025. But yeah, I think that's the only interesting thing I can say about this game. Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua also had really good games. Puka Nacua was just going off in the first half. I think he had an injury, but not anything serious in this game for Puka. But it was just one where the Rams just completely dominated the Saints on both sides of the ball, and one of the easier wins I think they're going to have this year. So after that, because that game was, I can't really say too much more about the game. It was pretty one-sided. The last of the afternoon games was the game of the week, or at least on paper. And I think outside of the Bears-Bengals game, it was probably the game of the week, just for the stakes and all that. But it was the Kansas City Chiefs going into Buffalo to take on the Bills in the 10th ever matchup between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. A lot of these matches in the past have been really, really good. And interestingly enough, the Bills had won going into this game 4 straight regular season games against the Chiefs. So it's the regular season, the Bills are really good against the Chiefs. It's just that in the playoffs, they always fall short. In this game, it was once again the Bills defeating the Chiefs. They won by a score of 28-21 in a game where it was one of the worst games Patrick Mahomes had in his entire career, actually. The Bills' pass rush was having a day. They were making his life completely miserable. He got pressured or knocked down 15 times. It was the most he'd gotten pressured ever in his career. He got sacked multiple times as well in this game. And it was just one where Mahomes was having a bad day behind his offensive line. And the Chiefs' offense as a whole was really struggling this game. And I get they only lost by 7 points, but it was definitely one where the Bills were pretty much in control of this game. Josh Allen had a pretty solid game. His tight ends were having a day. Dalton Kincaid finally had his probably breakout game of his career, going for 101 yards and a touchdown. I believe Dawson Knox, I think he was playing in this game. If it wasn't, it felt like he was. But it was just one where the Bills were offensively just seemed to be outplaying the Chiefs. And defensively, the Chiefs, like, it was the same story where on both sides of the ball, the Bills were just outplaying the Chiefs. And I don't know if this is going to be how the same thing happens in the postseason, because I feel like it's almost a certainty at this point, that the Chiefs and the Bills are going to match up again, because it's just going to happen with how these two teams play. But I mean, this is definitely the weakest I feel like the Chiefs have looked in a good while, just because their offense just like doesn't seem to have, well, their offense doesn't have much of a run game. And with Isaiah Pacheco dealing with injuries, they're really struggling with a run game, and their passing options, even with Rashee Rice back, still it's lacking a lot of the explosiveness that they've had in seasons past. Like, I get they had a good game, sort of ish, against the Commanders last week on Monday, but the Chiefs are 5-4, and right now out of the playoff picture for a good reason. I don't think they're going to miss the playoffs by any stretch of the matter, but it's one where the Chiefs definitely have some work to do. As for the Bills, they're 6-2, just beat the Chiefs. They're looking pretty good right now. Then we get to Sunday night. I don't want to talk about Sunday night at all, as a Washington Commanders fan, but I kind of have to. So in a season that was starting to get to season from hell territory for the Commanders, they played host to the very, very well-playing Seattle Seahawks. You could say red hot Seahawks, however you want to call it. They were 5-2. And this is one where the Commanders debuted their Super Bowl era uniforms. It was basically just the Redskins uniform, but in like a modern look, and with the Washington Commanders W instead of the Redskins logo on the side of the helmet. They looked incredible. What did not look incredible was literally everything about the game for the Commanders. This is one where everything that could go wrong did go wrong, and well, I'll get to the injuries and stuff, but and just the season overall. But the defense played its worst game of the season, and that's saying something because this defense has been terrible for the Commanders. Sam Darnold went 21 of 24 for 330 yards and 4 touchdowns. Almost all of that in the first half. Jackson Smith and Jigba had 129 yards, and it was literally like every drive the Seahawks had in the first half, the Commanders could just do nothing. Like they had no pass rush whatsoever, and then their secondary was getting burned, and it was one where it was just awful, to say the least. Like it was a defensive performance that was like on par with the Bears and Cowboys, or not the Bengals and the Cowboys, for like how god awful it was. And then on the offensive side of the ball, there was no Terry McLaurin again. He's dealing with his injury again. And with Terry out, the Commanders' offense was really struggling because it was clear that the Seahawks defense did not respect the pass in this game. And then they just started, they nullified the run game early. And then once the game started to get out of reach and the Commanders couldn't really lean on the run game because they were down by so many scores because their defense was just playing the worst football imaginable, they had to rely completely on the passing game. And this really solid Seahawks defense led by Mike McDonald was just going to town completely. And like it was just awful. And then we get to the injuries. So Luke McCaffrey, who's Commanders wide receiver, well, going into the season, he was probably their wide receiver 4 after Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, Noah Brown. But he's been their kickoff return specialist and legitimately the best kick returner in the league. And he goes down with a broken collarbone on the opening kickoff where the whistle gets blown and like 4 seconds later he gets dragged to the ground and breaks his collarbone. So that was really, really cool to see. Thanks referees for that. And thanks Seattle for that as well. And so he goes down, he's out for the season, and that kind of set the tone for the whole game. Marshawn Lattimore tore his ACL in this game. He was not having a good game regardless, but it sucks anyway. And then the big one is that late in the game, well past the time that Jaden Daniels probably should have been staying in the game. I get that they wanted to keep him in because, well, A, it's you get him reps, and then also just B, that Jaden Daniels is such a competitor that it would literally take a broken arm to get him to get out of the game. And it wasn't a broken arm, but it looked like a broken arm when it happened, where he was getting tackled, where you could call it a hip drop tackle, but it was definitely one where not a nice tackle to watch. And he tried bracing himself on the ground with his left arm. His left arm basically then just bent the complete wrong direction, where if you're trying to put it on a surface and you're falling forward, his upper arm went forward, his forearm or lower arm, or everything below the elbow just didn't go forward, so it just kind of stayed there and it didn't bend the way it's supposed to bend. Somehow, some way, it's only seems to be a elbow dislocation. I have no idea how, but it wouldn't have been career ending anyway, unless it was nerve damage or something. But it was his non-throwing arm, and it's still going to knock him out indefinitely. I don't know if we see Jaden Daniels again this season. I think we probably will, if it's if they're saying it's not nearly as serious as it looked, where it's only a dislocation, no fractures or breaks or anything like that. But it's Daniels is definitely not playing next week. Dell will see him probably for another few weeks. They haven't placed him on IR yet, but it's not good. Basically, the TLDR, it's not good. And so, as a Washington Commanders fan, I feel the need to talk a little bit more about this team because I am a fan of them. This is a season where everything that has gone wrong, it's the everything that can goes wrong does go wrong, essentially. Everything that has gone wrong has gone wrong. Compared to last season where everything basically went right, this is the exact opposite. And people a lot of people and a lot of media and all that are saying the 49ers are the most injured team. And I would agree to an extent, but the Commanders are getting to be right there with them. To list off the injuries, Commanders are now without their quarterback 1, wide receiver 1, wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, and then also just out. And then also having dealt with injuries, their starting right guard, Sam Cosmi, who is now back, but he had been dealing with his torn ACL from last season. Also, their starting running back 1 in Austin Eckler, he's been out for the season. Deebo Samuel, their wide receiver 2, has been dealing with injuries. He had a heel injury earlier in the season, and it's probably still hindering him. He's lost a lot of explosiveness that he had in the first couple weeks, and it's probably that nagging injury. And then on the defensive side of the ball, their top 3 defensive ends are out for the season. And I guess also I could probably name. So Jaden Daniels, quarterback 1, Austin Eckler, running back 1, Sam Cosmi, their starting right guard, rehabbing an injury. And then Terry McLaurin, wide receiver 1, Deebo Samuel, wide receiver 2, Noah Brown, wide receiver 3, Luke McCaffrey, wide receiver 4. So top 4 wide receivers are either out or dealing with injuries. 2 of them out for the season in Noah Brown and Luke McCaffrey. Terry McLaurin, don't know if we'll see him again this season. I'm not quite sure because he's just been off and on with injury. And Deebo, I don't know either. And then on the defensive side, it's Dorrance Armstrong, Dietrich Wise, and Javonte Jean-Baptiste. Their top 3 defensive ends are out for the season with injuries. So there goes your pass rush. And then also now Marshawn Lattimore, their starting cornerback 1, out for the season with torn ACL. And then Will Harris, their starting safety, who is clearly playing a key role in the defense as their lead communicator. He's been out since week 3 with a broken arm or something. I don't remember exactly, but he's been out. I don't think he's out for the season out, but he's been out for a good while. So it's a team where major starters on both sides of the ball on very important positions are out for extended periods of time. And because this team has had Ron Rivera drafting for them for 4 years straight, they have no depth whatsoever. And that's why they had to sign so many veteran free agents that like they just need bodies to fill the positions. And when they have no depth and now no starters, it's no wonder why this team is 3-6, because they've never had a chance to have their full offense on the field together this season, and they never will. And you know, when you can't have your starting offense or your starting defense play, it's no surprise whatsoever. Like, not everyone can beat San Francisco with like endless amounts of depth or good coaching. It's like this is what's supposed to happen to a team that's riddled with injuries. Like, they're supposed to not play well because they have no one viable to really compete or just do anything, because all of their starting talent is injured. I'm not saying injuries are the only thing or the only reason why the Commanders are playing bad. I think their coaching has taken a major step back this year, both in terms of Cliff Kingsbury and Joe Witt Jr., the offensive defense coordinators. I think neither of them are having a good year. Joe Witt especially has been having a terrible year calling the defense. Again, he's been dealing with a lot of injuries, but even like when a lot of his players were healthy, still not good. It's just been a perfect storm for the Commanders for having a garbage season, essentially. And for them, I think they're one of the teams where they're going to be looking to mock drafts rather than playoffs, because they have a really tough schedule, and there's no way they rattle off wins. There's just none, unfortunately. And it really sucks for me as a fan, to like, you know, going from the highs of last season to the lows of this season. But ultimately that's football, and just got to look to 2026 and hope things can get better. What's also like the worst part about this, or well, one of the worst parts about this is just being a fan of a team with expectations that just completely falls flat. As a fan of the Orioles as well, I know this all too well over the past couple of years, where pretty similar to what the Commanders are going through right now, where Orioles had an insanely good 2023 season with a lot of young talent that you could say they overachieved, but you know, they overall played well, and you know, tried to open up their window, and pretty much fell flat on their opening charge. And so the online fan base basically is just incredibly frustrating to like see, because everyone thinks they know what's right for the team, and 99% of the time it's not true. So yeah, it just kind of sucks overall. Last but not least, after all that moaning and complaining, but last but not least, we'll get to one game that at least made me slightly happier. Was the Dallas Cowboys hosting the Arizona Cardinals in Dallas. And it was one where Jacoby Brissett once more took the starting role for the Cardinals, and once again looked significantly better than Kyler Murray did. And not only significantly better, the Cardinals finally won a game. First time since like week 3 or something like that they won a game. And I would like to amend a few things, both about the Cardinals. Also, I meant to say this a lot earlier, but one thing that I mentioned last week as well. So first, I meant to actually kind of say this at the start, but I just made a mistake last week when I was doing my recap of the Jets-Bengals game, where I had said that when Breece Hall, like he had I said Breece Hall threw a pass to tight end for a 2-point conversion. That was not the case. That was actually for the touchdown, which they then went for 2 points and converted after that. So I apologize for that little mix-up. Either way, it was a Breece Hall to a tight end whose name I don't remember off the top of my head, pass, which, again, not super surprising. No, very surprising. The opposite of not super surprising. Not super common that you see a running back pass to a tight end in the red zone for touchdown. And then I also want to amend some of the comments I made on the Cardinals. So I had said, like, I've been very critical of the Cardinals, and I was like very like doom and gloom on them. I would like to say that, I like, it took me a few weeks to, like, take back and realize that, like, they had lost and certainly were not playing super well, but all of their losses had been like by 4 points or less. And it was like before last week where they lost again by one score. It was like all four of their losses before last week were by a combined 13 points, like, total between those four games. So it's not like the Cardinals were like in the Titans category or the Saints category where they're like just completely bad. They were just really, they just weren't unable to secure wins essentially. Like their fourth quarter point differential was like in the negative 60s or something, or it might have been negative 30. I don't know. It was really bad essentially. And it's one where it was one where I didn't quite do enough to really think about it and go like, yeah, the Cardinals are in a really rough stretch, but you know, they're probably playing better than the record might suggest. And, after this game, I can definitely say they're playing better than their record suggests because they pretty much dominated the Cowboys in this game, especially on the defensive side of the ball. The Cardinals defense was playing very well against the Cowboys this game. The Cowboys turned the ball over on downs multiple times in this game, and only scored one offensive touchdown. They scored another touchdown on special teams on a blocked punt for a touchdown, but the Cowboys offense just was really struggling this game, and which is a little surprising to see. But the Cardinals have a lot of players on defense. Josh Sweat has been playing really well for the Cardinals. Walter Nolan, their third, their first round pick from this past draft, finally made his debut, and he had a really good game. Will Johnson, their second round pick at cornerback, he also had a nice game. And it was just one where the Cardinals defense looked a lot better than they had so far this season and was really doing a good job of messing with this Cowboys offense. And then on the flip side, Jacoby Brissett once more looked like he was very comfortable in this offensive situation. And he was throwing the ball a lot to Marvin Harrison Jr. Early, and MHJ was having a really nice game. He had 7 catches for 96 yards and a touchdown. He set a new career high in catches with, again, 7, which just goes to show like how little he's being involved in this offense. Like, I know he dealt with a lot of drops early in the season, but it's definitely looking like they're going to be getting him involved more now. Since it's clear he has a lot of talent, and he's definitely shown over the past couple weeks that those early season yips are behind him. So the Cardinals win 27-17, and I don't really know what else to say than that the Cardinals just outplayed the Cowboys completely in this game, on both sides of the ball, which was a little surprising to see. I know the Cowboys haven't been great this year, but like, I was a little surprised to see the Cardinals play as well as they did. And so we also got a little bit of news after this, is that Jacoby Brissett is going to be, or has been named, the starting quarterback going forward. So I think Kyler Murray, like, he was declared out with a foot injury going into this game. But it's looking like even if he does come back from the foot injury, that as of right now, Jacoby Brissett is going to be the starting quarterback because, it's clear he's been outplaying Kyler Murray this season. And Jonathan Gannon and that coaching staff, who I was very critical of earlier on in this year. I think they made the right decision here. I like the starting Jacoby Brissett because I think he's been running this offense a lot better than Kyler Murray has, essentially. So now we get to we'll get to the trade deadline. And there's a couple trades I know I missed in terms of like they happened a week or two ago. But basically all of those were like pretty minor trades overall. So start off, just going to kind of run down what I wrote down, where basically trades were going on as they happened. So The Eagles made a pair of trades here. They traded for Jalen Phillips from the Dolphins. I believe a former first round pick, Jalen Phillips is, who's a pass rusher. They got him for a third round pick. So we'll see. I think on paper, it's a really good move for the Eagles because Jalen Phillips in the past has played pretty well, but I just don't know how well he's been playing this past season. If it's going to be a Hassan Reddick situation or a Bryce Huff situation for the Eagles, where Hassan Reddick, they got not through trade, but through free agency. He played really well. Bryce Huff, meanwhile, they got through trade with the Jets. He did not play well in the slightest. He was terrible with the Eagles. The Eagles also traded for Jair Alexander from the Ravens because they definitely need some help at cornerback. I don't really think Jair Alexander is the answer. They only got him for a sixth, but Jair's really, really bad for the Ravens this season. Like, healthy scratch levels of bad this season. So I don't really know. I mean, my guess is right now he's going to be playing as cornerback depth, but after Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, the Eagles secondary, cornerback room, I should say, really falls off. So next up, it was kind of circumstances wise, this is kind of amusing where the Cowboys, so on Monday Night Football, it was said that Jerry Jones had a trade that he had executed. Like, it had gone through and processed, but he was keeping it secret. It was this big secret trade. And so the Cowboys made two big trades for the trade deadline. The first that came out, which everyone was kind of making fun of because it was the big secret trade, which I don't think it was, actually. I think it was the other one that was a lot bigger. But the first one was that the Cowboys traded for middle linebacker Logan Wilson from the Cincinnati Bengals for a 7th-round pick. Wilson, I mean, he wasn't getting too much playing time on the Bengals, so I don't really know how much of an indictment is on him for not getting a lot of playing time on literally the worst defense in football. But we'll see if a change of scenery for him does anything good for for him on the Cowboys. But the bigger one for the Cowboys, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit, was that the New York Jets traded away Quinnen Williams, their former 3rd overall pick in 2019, defensive tackle out of Alabama, to the Cowboys for a 2026 2nd-round pick, a 2027 1st-round pick, and Mozzie Smith. So a defensive tackle swap there. Quinnen Williams, one of the better defensive tackles in football. He's definitely going to be an immediate upgrade for the Cowboys defense. So it's two things can be true, I think. One is that Quinnen Williams will be an impact player for the Cowboys defense from the get-go. I also think that the Cowboys defense is still going to be bad because they didn't really address either their biggest needs in edge rusher or defensive back. Because Quinnen Williams is defensive tackle. He's a really good defensive tackle, but he's still a defensive tackle. He's like, you're not really looking at him to get like 6 or even 7 sacks in a season. Like, Aaron Donald is the exception to the defensive tackle, essentially. Like, you're not expecting those guys to be rushing, like consistently rushing the passer. And this is a Cowboys team that cannot rush the passer reliably whatsoever. They really struggle with rushing the passer ever since they traded away Micah Parsons. And that's been a huge issue for their secondary, which has been dealing with injury and just underperformance overall. Deron Bland had a terrible game against the Cardinals. He was getting absolutely just roasted by Marvin Harrison Jr. in that game. So when it's for the Cowboys, when they have glaring weaknesses at edge rusher or secondary, not quite sure why going for a defensive tackle is the right move. I mean, again, I think Quinnen Williams is a really good player, and I think he's going to make an immediate difference for the Cowboys defense. I'm just not sure why going for defensive tackle over edge rusher or cornerback was the right move, so to speak. So I'll go back to my normal list of just going down. So one of the earlier trades in the day was the Titans trading away outside linebacker Draymond Jones to the Ravens for a 5th-round pick. I talked with a friend of mine at work today who is a Ravens fan, and he was very happy about this. So I know nothing about Draymond Jones, I'll be honest. So it could be good, could be bad. I mean, it's a 5th-round pick, so it's not like it's anything, super like special or anything like that. But it's I don't know. We'll see. It could be good, could be bad. I think it's probably low upside, high reward for the Ravens is my guess. So that was that. Next up was the Raiders trading away Jacoby Myers, who had requested a trade like pretty much right before the start of the season, which was not granted, but now it has been, to the Jacksonville Jaguars for a 4th and 6th round pick, I believe, in this year's draft. And this is, I think, the reason why they did this was twofold. One, Travis Hunter going on injured reserve, so they suddenly have a big gap at wide receiver. And like I know they have Brian Thomas and all that, and De'Ami Brown, but I mean, neither of those guys have played particularly well this season. So getting a guy like Jacoby Myers, who is like a solid, like high end wide receiver 2, low end wide receiver 1, I think is a good move. One also thing I saw is that statistics wise, Jacoby Myers is only like 2 drop passes in 164 catches or something like that. And the Jags have been really struggling with drop passes this season. I think they're like, I don't know like specifics, but I think they're second basically only to the Commanders in drop passes. Like one of the worst teams in terms of receivers dropping passes. So getting a guy with surefire hands like Jacoby Myers is pretty good. So I really like this move with the Jags. I think it's a very solid move. So the other wide receiver trade was the New Orleans Saints sending away Rashid Shaheed, the speedy deep threat, to the Seattle Seahawks, reuniting him with the Seahawks offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak, who was the Saints offensive coordinator last year. And if you remember, Kubiak got Shaheed involved early and often in those like 2 weeks where the Saints were just going off completely and like having an insane 2-week run. Shaheed was going crazy those 2 weeks. So going to a Seahawks team that's actually pretty thin at receiver after Jackson Smith and Jigba is I like the move for that as well. I never saw what the Saints got back for. I didn't see it when I was looking initially. I believe it's a 4th rounder that the Saints got back for Rashid Shaheed. And so, I mean, that's a fine return. It's same with the Raiders. It's a fine return. The market for like non-high end starters at the trade deadline always seems to be pretty low. So like getting a 4th round pick for both those guys is pretty solid. So next up, another pretty low end trade. The Browns trading away Joe Tryon-Shoyinka and a 7th to the Bears for a 6th round pick. The Bears had been dealing with some injuries at the pass rusher level, and so they're taking a flyer on a former 1st round pick. I believe the Buccaneers selected him with the 32nd pick in 2021, but he flamed out there. So I mean, I don't think this is kind of a nothing burger. It's just kind of something to cover because it was at the trade deadline, essentially. I don't think I don't expect to see Tryon-Shoyinka making too much of an impact, but I mean, who knows? He could shock the world. But the big one though, actually I'll save that for last because there's still one other tiny trade that I want to go for. That was like a buzzer beater one was the Jets trading for actually Chargers cornerback Jasir Taylor for a conditional 7th. So again, like it's a conditional 7th quarterback for a depth piece cornerback. But so it's kind of a nothing burger there. But the reason why the Jets are trading for a cornerback, a defensive back, is the big trade. The big trade, even more so than the Quentin Williams trade, was that the Jets traded away Sauce Gardner to the Indianapolis Colts for 2 first-round picks and Adonai Mitchell, the former 2nd-round pick at receiver out of Texas from, I believe, 2024. This is huge. And I'm honestly not sure who, if anyone, wins this trade. Because for a couple of reasons. So for Indianapolis, they definitely needed cornerback help. They didn't really have a shutdown guy at corner. And Sauce on paper is going to be that shutdown guy. However, Gardner hasn't been playing great the past couple seasons. Like I don't think he's like a rookie one hit wonder. Because he's still very solid. We just haven't seen him play quite the level he did when he was a rookie, or even his second season. So there is that big worry there where like Sauce has definitely seen a bit of a drop in defensive production and like just overall play over the past couple seasons compared to his first couple seasons. Um, I'm I still think he's a good cornerback, and I think he'll probably play better in the Colts system than he did in the Jets system. Um, but it's still like I'm a little I don't I like the Colts trading for Sauce Gardner because I think pretty much everyone could agree that they could have used some assistance in the secondary. I just think the price that they gave up was a little too steep. Two first round picks, and a wide receiver who I get kind of flamed out a little bit and wasn't, playing all that well for them. But two first round picks for a cornerback, which is a position that is really, really volatile in the NFL, is a huge, huge risk. And I get that this team is playing well above expectations this season, like 7-2, one of the best teams in the NFL. And they have a lot of room to work with. They're playing house money right now with Daniel Jones, but they've only had him for 9 games now, so it's like you don't know if like they peaked too, like if he's peaked too early, and it's like the Steelers game is the start of a trend. I don't think it is, but it's like it's a huge risk for the Colts to take, I think, because I'm always a big like I value first round picks a lot. I tend to value them I don't know, a situation. Whereas sometimes I'll value them more, sometimes I'll value them less, or like draft picks overall. But it's, again, 2 first round picks is just a very steep price. And it probably will work out for them. But it's a lot essentially. But that was the big trade. Really the two trades, the Quentin Williams and Sauce Gardner trades. The Jets were having their fire sale. They now have 5 first round picks in the next 2 years. They have 2 in 2026 and 3 in 2027, not to mention additional second round picks in both drafts. So the Jets are absolutely loaded with draft picks for the next couple of years. Will they hit on them is a completely different question. And it's the Jets, so I don't know. But we'll see. We shall see. They hit on their first round pick this year in Armand Membu. He's having a really nice year. So yeah, we'll see. But that's going to do it for week 9. I think what I'm going to do for my next episode, I think I'm going to do an episode 2 of Wacky Warships this weekend, depending on if I get caught up with things. I got caught up with playing Pokemon Legends ZA this weekend, so that has dominated a lot of my time because that game is very fun. I might have to do an episode on that when I wind up finishing that game. But I'm going to try and get an episode out this weekend. And then obviously next week will be the Week 10 NFL recap. So that's it for now. Thank you very much for listening. So this is a first. I forgot a game when I was covering the early slate. My apologies for this, but I'm going to slot this here at the end of the episode. So don't go anywhere just yet. I completely forgot about the Denver Broncos taking on the Houston Texans in Houston. To be honest, I'm not surprised that I forgot about this because this game was really bad. It was like an 18-15 win where the Texans didn't score a single touchdown. They just kicked 5 field goals. And the Broncos offense didn't look all that much better. Bo Nix, he didn't look great. He only threw for 173 yards. He did throw for 2 touchdowns. But it was just a really ugly game. This is one where Nico Collins came back for the Texans from injury, And unfortunately, though, CJ Stroud got injured early on in this game where he was running, went for a slid kind of late, and got completely leveled on a legal tackle, I might add. It was one where the defensive back for the Broncos went shoulder to shoulder, basically, hit him with his shoulder. It was just that he started the tackle before Stroud like really even started sliding, but they impacted while Stroud was sliding, and Stroud basically got hit as he was sliding, and his head hit the ground hard going backwards, and so he went into concussion protocol. I believe he'll be out this coming week as well for week 10. And so Davis Mills and his incredibly large neck played the rest of the way through this game, and it was just a really ugly game. Defensive battle, I should say, but like one of the ones where it's like both offenses were just not having good days. And yeah, I mean, even I'm assuming with Stroud, the Texans probably might have won. I honestly don't know for sure because the Texans were just struggling to get anything going. And I mean, Davis Mills wasn't even that bad. Like it felt like he was making some decent throws. It was just the Broncos defense is really good. And then Texans defense is also really good. So it was just, it's one where, like I said about the Bears Bengals game, where if you're a fan of offense, you're going to love that game. This is one more, if you're a fan of defense, you'd probably love this game, but it was rough. But in the end, the Broncos, who seemed to be the kings of the fourth quarter, they scored 11 points in the fourth quarter to seal the victory here, and also shut out the Texans in the fourth quarter. They moved to 7-2, so they're actually tied atop the AFC for the best record, and I think actually best record in football as well. So they're tied with the Colts now. I think they actually hold tiebreaker over the Colts because they beat the Colts, or no, they lost to the Colts earlier in the season on the leverage penalty. Now that I think about it, but yeah, they're still the same record as the Colts, and Broncos are also a team where like the Panthers and also like the Packers, I don't really know what to think of them. I think they're good. I mean, they're obviously 7-2, and they have a very strong defense. I just don't really know what to think of their offense. Like Bo Nix is like, he's shown some flashes, but he hasn't really taken that next step yet. So I'm not quite sure. I don't know for sure. I don't know. Basically, I'm cautiously optimistic for the Broncos, but right now I'm a little shaky. On them still. I need to see them string together some better offensive performances before I can really say for certain that they're going to make a playoff run. And yeah, that was all. I don't think I'm going to slot this in anywhere in my episode. I think I'm just going to put it here at the end. I'll probably put a note in the description. Just to say so. Sorry about this. I'm usually pretty good at not glossing over games, but this is one that when I was like cross-referencing my notes and the scores on ESPN, it just kind of I just kind of scrolled through it and wasn't really thinking about it. But again, it was a pretty game. It was a game that wasn't really that interesting to watch and wasn't really an interesting game to make some notes about. So yeah. Anyway. Once again, thank you very much for listening.